Shalom, Holy Blossom. This week, the Toronto Board of Rabbis issued a new statement, which begins with these words of Elie Wiesel. In any society, fanatics who hate don't only hate me, they hate you too. They hate everybody. The Toronto Board of Rabbis notes with alarm the increasing number of public anti-Semitic incidents in our city, in Canada, and around the world. Centuries-old anti-Semitic tropes have been given new life. Innocent people have been subject to verbal and physical abuse. Jews are being harassed on social media and at universities, threatened in their neighborhoods, assaulted in restaurants and on the streets. While some elected officials have spoken out against the rising tide of anti-Semitism, words alone do not suffice. We urge all our levels of government to bring the full force of the law to bear on individuals and groups who commit anti-Semitic crimes. We call on elected officials and faith leaders to unequivocally denounce anti-Semitism and to recommit to combating anti-Semitism wherever it may be found. We join with others in our community in calling on the federal government to convene an emergency summit to tackle anti-Semitism as soon as possible. It is said that what begins with Jews does not end with Jews. For the sake of all Canadians, now is the time to speak out against hatred and violence. It may or may not surprise you to know that since March of 2017, the Toronto Board of Rabbis has issued 7 statements on anti-Semitism or anti-Semitic events, 4 of which have dealt with incidents here in Canada or in Toronto. That means 7 statements in just 4 years. And despite what you might think, most of the statements made by the Toronto Board of Rabbis are not about protecting Jews, but about protecting other peoples. That's where we want to spend our time and energy. Most of our statements are about keeping Canadians healthy, through calls to become organ donors, through calls to uphold COVID protocols, calls to overcome vaccine hesitancy, and so on. So what does this tell us, 7 statements about anti-Semitism in 4 years? Well, simply, it tells us that anti-Semitism is a constant. The world's oldest hatred, they say. Tenacious and pernicious, it is always lurking under the surface and in the dark corners of the underbelly of societies, even here in Canada, a relative paradise of human rights and peace among women and men. From time to time, someone or something somewhere signals that it is safe to come out from hiding places underground and rear an ugly head. That's when government officials and grassroots leadership and ordinary good people everywhere need to speak up in simple, short sentences and say, we will not tolerate hatred in our community. We will not tolerate hatred in our country, full stop. Anti-Semitic speech is hate speech, full stop. Anti-Semitic violence and vandalism are crimes and will be treated swiftly as crimes to the full extent of the law. Anti-Semitic slogans and symbols online are also hate speech and will find no shelter in Canada's commitment to freedom of speech. I'm not an alarmist. I'm old enough now, I can say. I'm not an alarmist. This most recent wave of anti-Semitism has been swift across much of North America and Europe. It needs to be managed. And thank goodness we have many strong watchdog organizations monitoring and strategizing collaboratively, a multi-layered response to clarify and correct the conspiracy theories and falsehoods and lies. What can we do? What can we do? First, below this video, you'll see a link to a toolkit put together by CIJA. Included there is a petition calling on the government of Canada to have an emergency summit to confront the root causes of anti-Semitism head on. You may choose to personalize that petition. There's an easy way to swipe through some options so it sounds more like you, or you can create your own as I did, using this only as a template. You can share this toolkit with others near and far. What else can we do? We can talk to non-Jewish family and friends, neighbors and colleagues. Anti-Semitism, after all, is not a Jewish problem, and it cannot be solved by Jews alone. So speak personally. Let people know how it feels to witness this rise of anti-Semitism, and ask for their help. Ask them to amplify their own voices, to shut it down, to shut down and shout down hatred until it retreats underground once again. Number 3, we can talk to children and grandchildren openly. They see, they hear, they know. So let us protect them by speaking about it openly. Help them not to be terrorized or frozen with fear. Help them to be responsible in addressing hateful things in their social media feed. Coach them along the way. Help them to invite classmates or even strangers from school to actually meet in person in a healthy COVID-safe way, of course, with social distancing outside, but let it be a discussion about memes and posts that are all too easy to flip around without recognizing the damage that they do. Help our kids to speak not in slogans, but panim el panim, face to face, with us and with their peers. And number 4, which I would say is most important in my mind, we can double down on Jewish life. I believe the best response to someone who fantasizes about a world without Jews is to be Jewish, to do Jewish. The most powerful response to someone who calls for the destruction of Jewish life everywhere is to strengthen Jewish life everywhere. The most powerful response to someone who fantasizes about wiping the state of Israel off the map is to reinforce that Israel has a place among the nations. Highlight Israel's gifts to the world and to all humanity. And closer to home, tonight, lighting Shabbat candles is a kind of protest, replacing darkness with light. Tomorrow morning, coming to Shabbat Torah study is an act of rebellion, replacing ignorance with wisdom. Joining your voice in songful prayer, morning and evening, is a kind of revolt, replacing hatred with harmony. Inviting an unaffiliated Jewish individual or family to join us at Holy Blossom Temple for the new year replaces the strain on the fabric of Jewish life by reinforcing it. More than 100 years ago, Mark Twain wrote, "The Jew has made a marvelous fight in this world in all the ages and has done it with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain of himself and be excused for it. The Egyptian, the Babylonian, the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burned out, and they sit in twilight now, or have vanished altogether. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he, and she, I would add, remains." We at Holy Blossom Temple, professional and lay leadership, are working literally day and night now to prepare for the coming year of reunion. We are meeting regularly with the COVID cabinet to determine exactly what and when and how, and soon we will roll out our next congregation-wide survey to hear about your intentions and your hopes and desires for the coming year. Together, we will create the full vibrancy of Jewish life once again, It will be joyful and meaningful. It will be comforting and stimulating. It will be ever relevant and relational and always life-affirming. Am Yisrael Chai and Shabbat Shalom.